We are joined here by Peter DeJong, President and CEO of PATA, Pacific Area Travel Association. We welcome him and also ask him to tell us success stories that he believes under his helm PATA has experienced.
Not so sure about under my helm per se, but Asia, because it's not Pacific Area, it's Pacific Asia Travel Association. Asia is probably the major success story of recent times, with the disposable income growing of many more Asians in the new economies, shall we say, which now enables them to travel. And while they have traveled domestically a bit, they're now beginning to explore the world, and this is a great thing for many reasons, not merely economic. And so our issue in this region, as opposed to some other regions, is not so much where are the consumers coming from, but how do we deal with these new consumers who don't quite have the wherewithal of travel yet, who are not sophisticated or experienced travelers yet, who might not have the requisite language skills and or expectations of their travel experience, and how do we bring them into the society of travelers that all of us in the developed economies and in the Western economies have become. So it's exciting to be in Asia in the 21st century, which certainly is the Asian century. I mean, in my view, the 19th century was the last European century, the 20th century was the American century, and the 21st century is most definitely the Asian century.
Being in Macau for the SCAL Asia conference last week, what's going on there, it's never been seen in my 3 decades in the industry.
Well, and that's only one place. I was in Dubai this past week, and the other hottest property, in my view, in our industry is the Gulf region, which is positioning itself as an aviation hub. So between the Gulf and Asia, you've got the new consumer, but also the new challenge of how to connect that consumer with existing markets in Europe and North America, for instance, because as yet, 70% of the travelers in Asia Pacific travel to other Asia Pacific destinations. So it's still very much our own world being discovered by neighbors, which is not so different from the European travel patterns of yesteryear and even today, or even the North American travel pattern for that matter. It's very much a domestic or a regional activity, first of all. Challenges we have as we look at these literally many millions of consumers coming online is how to handle them, how to ensure that they get a quality experience, that they get quality preparation. And what we've been very good at in Asia is building the infrastructure to handle these new flows in terms of airports, airlines, air connectivity, and increasingly also the hospitality sector. We're building hotels faster than you can throw a stick at. But what we haven't yet been nearly as successful at is developing the human skills to run all those facilities. So in PATA's opinion, the human resource challenge is a very, very major one for us. That goes all the way across the food chain of tourism. The insufficient number of pilots to fly our planes in Asia Pacific, cabin crew, hotel staff, airport staff, duty-free staff, restaurants, you name it. People who have the requisite skills and the enthusiasm for the industry. And because there is a service mentality in Asia, there is a willingness to serve, there is no absence of goodwill, but there is an absence of hard skills. So that's an area we're focusing on in our organization, and to also make tourism a more attractive career choice. Because too many, also in Asia, too many of our parents still push financial services and law and economy and entrepreneurship, and we haven't told the success story enough yet of tourism as a wonderful career path and one with great opportunity in Asia Pacific. So that's one issue. Obviously, much as everyone else, we are concerned about the issue of sustainability to build an industry that will last, not just this but also future generations. We're concerned about what we call the carrying capacity of fragile environments, heritage sites, natural sites. We're doing a lot to address that through responsible tourism management. So those are some of the challenges of growth. So the good news is we've got lots of enthusiastic would-be travelers and first-time travelers. The good news is we've got increasingly the money to travel and the connectivity. The challenge is to ensure that we harness the growth and bring some quality to the experience for the travelers and the recipient destinations.
Now, Pacific Asia Travel Association, PATA, is a membership association of people in the travel, companies in the travel industry. Am I correct?
Yes, it's unique. First of all, it's old, though very young, we like to think, in that it exists for more than half a century. It was the first of its kind. What distinguishes it from other travel trade associations is that it has the public and private sectors as equal partners, based on the belief that you really can't develop tourism efficiently if you don't get the regulators and the operators to talk to each other. So from day one in 1951 to today, in all that we do, we invite and protect the equal voice and importance and influence and voice of those who run ministries, control budgets, tourist boards on the public side, and all the operators on the private side, the aviation sector, the hospitality sector, the tour operator sector, the ground handler sector, the retail sector, and so on and so forth. And thus, we've built a partnership throughout the region, and it's a very big region, that helps us formulate good plans to be tactical and strategic when we have to be. And it's based on the assumption also that we had to, and we have, and continue to, build the brand Asia Pacific. And so, in other words, the industry first has to be collegial before it can be competitive. First, we have to get our product understood and out there, and then we'll compete for our market share. But let's work together in getting the product understood and marketed to the wider audiences.
One thing in this life and in any industry we can count on is change. Since the turn of the century, what kind of changes has PATA had to deal with? Of course, we know about all the challenges from SARS to tsunamis and economic challenges. But how did that affect SARS, the internet coming in, the membership, and as an association, it has changed too, and that doesn't always happen quickly enough to everybody's satisfaction, I suppose.
Well, I think that's an important question and not so easy to answer. But if I were to cite a couple of trends, one thing has happened in the 50 years that PATA has been active. We were initially a marketing support organization for destinations and the beginning operators of our industry, because people didn't know Asia Pacific. We were, travel happened as an elite sort of game between North Atlantic partners. So there was a whole marketing campaign needed to get people to understand where we were located, who we were, what we were about, that we didn't live in trees, and you could actually safely travel to and with us and enjoy an absolutely stunning, phenomenally stunning flora and fauna in this part of the world, for instance. Now that we've conveyed that message and the world has discovered Asia Pacific, and we've come into our own also, of course, in this multipolar world in a political sense, because people now understand that this is the Asian century and this is where most global decisions will have to be made in the coming 100 years. Now the issue is also to deal with the adversity of that, and you cited some of these issues like avian flu or SARS and tsunamis. So increasingly our role as a trade association has shifted from the marketing support to what we call advocacy or reputation management, to making sure that those long-haul markets that we so wish to stay connected with in Europe and North America, for instance, get a single voice message on what happened during the tsunami and where you can and where you cannot go, or how serious SARS is and what it really means for the traveler, and again where you can and cannot go, and what we're doing to remedy the situations. And we've learned, of course, over these last 5 years that I've been the president of PATA, because from the day I started we had just a whole series of these crises, to deal with crisis very effectively and to rebound from it very respectively, to be open and honest about information on it, to be resilient about it. So I dare say that because of the last 5 years adversity, the Bali bombs, all those other things we've mentioned, we've learned to be quick on our feet, quick to respond, to be collegial and loyal as a region, to help one another, and to respond with agility to emerging situations. I think being such a new world and such a young world, we have a huge advantage in so far as responding to those new phenomena are concerned. But also we have a huge advantage as a new, young region to adopt new technology and new opportunities without any, historical baggage, so to speak. I think we've become real early adopters of all the things that have happened in our industry in recent years, particularly the last 10 years, with regard to the internet and distribution systems. So I think we're poised for growth, but also poised for change. And the other thing we must remember, and this is a good thing, that still today 70+% of our business is intra-regional. So much as we like the long-haul markets in Europe and North America to visit us in greater numbers, our reliance on them for our life sustenance isn't as great as it was 40, 50 years ago, which is a great thing. So if we hadn't had that intra-regional interdependence, the consequences of SARS would have been far more devastating, because the long-haul markets were the first to stay home, for reasons which we understand, but the regional markets understood through the proximity, understanding our geography, that the problem was local and not universal, and the recovery was fast and not retarded, and so on and so forth. So intra-regional loyalty, if you will, solidarity perhaps, is very, very important to our future as well.
It's interesting that you mention that, because at this World UNWTO, United Nations World Tourism Organization conference, it was mentioned earlier that UNWTO deals with international travel and not domestic travel. While you're bringing up something about intra-Asian travel, that counts in their figures, but not the travel within, let's say, Malaysian Peninsula, or certainly within Thailand or Indonesia.
Well, first of all, domestic travel in most markets around the world far eclipses international travel in terms of economic importance.
80% of tourism expenditures.
And just to give you another sort of shocking fact, just the domestic travel alone in China during the golden weeks, during the holiday weeks, represents the largest mass movement of people ever seen in human history, in terms of numbers of people moving.
Even more than people going to Saudi Arabia?
By far. And eclipses all international travel in numbers. Not in economic importance, but in numbers. Now, we at NPATA, we use a concept called total tourism, which is domestic tourism, inbound and outbound together.
What was it called again?
Total tourism. Very simple. And we coined the phrase some years ago because to get a handle on tourism, its importance in your economy, you need to bring all three of those elements together. Because only then can you measure the economic impact that you have. Because tourist boards, for instance, were slow to understand, quite frankly, as focused as they were on bringing people to their destination, that their own outbound citizens traveling out of the country were also contributing to their economy. They also took cabs to the airport. They also parked overnight at the parking facilities at the airport. They also used the duty-free shopping. They also paid exit taxes and so on and so forth. So the economic basket of products and services, which a tourist board can be proudly pronounced as one that they achieve, must include the contribution of outbound travelers. So if you then develop from that the notion that travel is always two-way, then it's easier to build partnerships. I mean, airlines understand. They don't want to fly an empty plane back. They want passengers in both directions. Destinations needed to appreciate that because they were so focused on only getting their own share into a country. So developing this notion with our Asia-Pacific partners, we've become, if you will, more generous to ourselves, to each other, and to the world in viewing tourism as this holistic industry that has these three components.
Going back to, and first correct me if I didn't catch it exactly right, that PATA is now shifting from its original marketing partner role for its members, to an advocacy role.
Advocacy and research. What we call strategic intelligence.
How will that translate in partnerships and partners for PATA, meaning the tourist office is marketing, tourism ministers are policy. So is that going to be a shift there? That's part A of the question. Part B is, we used to have, I know there's been some changes and I'm a little confused of it, but we used to have PATA Travel Mart, which everybody, of course, grew up with if you've been in the business. Now we have something, I know that changed, and now you have something called PATA Summit coming up next April.
All right, well, I need to correct you for part of that last statement. We still have very much at the PATA Travel Mart. It's a huge success and it's a wonderful, appointment-driven, very focused buyer-seller contracting show. In fact, it'll be in Bali next September, in this year, 2007, and in Hyderabad, India, an exciting new destination in 2008. But to the other element of your question, so in that sense we still do marketing support because we bring trading partners together. But importantly, CEOs today, in this, avalanche of information that each of us get into our systems every day, in our inboxes and in trays and so on and so forth, need the right information at the right time to make smart decisions. And PATA has shifted to an intelligence-driven, knowledge-based organization so that the CEOs who run our member companies can quickly get what they need to know about a product, a destination, a new regulation, a new aviation development, a new line opening between two cities from us so they can incorporate that in their decision making. So when I say knowledge-based and information and intelligence-driven, it really means that our members require different products of us today than they did 50 years ago. Because marketing and distribution, as you know, now happens in so many ways that were unimaginable 50 years ago, be it through the internet or consolidators and brokers of all description. So our unique selling proposition, if you will, to our members is that we can tell them what they need to know, when they need to know it, to make smart decisions for their own businesses. They can come to us with specific requests. We push out a lot of research every month to them anyway, and they know to skim that quickly for the nuggets that they can pull out for their own management purposes.
And the summit, give us a little explanation on what that's proposed to accomplish. And
Thank you. Yeah. Well, so you were almost right insofar as we finished our history with a conference, a PATA conference, that had a long and very rich history, but it was seen as too long a program with normally 4 nights, almost a week away from your office if you include the travel, and tried to cover too many different subjects. What we are now moving to, starting next April in Bangkok, is a summit where in a day and a half we focus on only one subject but go deep on that subject. And it may well be, we think, something to do with global warming, but more importantly, break that down as to what do I as a CEO of a company need to know about that today to make smart decisions for my company. So rather than a generic and general show that the conference was with a lot of pomp and circumstance and very colorful and expensive opening ceremonies and so on and so forth, it's going to be a business-like, strategic, Davos-like meeting of the leadership. It won't be as large perhaps, it may be just 400 or 500 people rather than 1,000, but the people who move and shake the industry will be asked to convene on a subject that will be in the radar screen of every one of them. Each one of them will have to make a decision about that topic sometime during the next 24 months.
It's targeted at the CEO chairman level?
Yes, correct.
And versus the participants at PATA Travel Mart are more your marketing, mid to senior marketing level. One final piece to tie in the PATA organizations at the country level. I myself had been a PATA member in the U.S. in past. So now, how do these changes affect, if at all, PATA? If I'm a PATA member, travel agent, you have a lot of them in the U.S. and around the world. Yep. How does that affect them?
That's a very good and difficult question. I think it's fair to say, and to admit, perhaps even, that it is increasingly difficult for us at the center, PATA Center, to provide real tangible value to the small local retail operator. And yet that was our base 40, 50 years ago when we were discovering Asia Pacific, and you had the fan trips back and forth, and you had the discovery travel.
I remember.
Yes. Now we struggle to find real tangible value for the retailer in the non-Asia Pacific markets, let's say Europe and North America. The way we try and compensate for that is to find local activities through the PATA chapters that produce value for them, so that you bring to the local level, if you will, the opportunities that the member countries in Asia Pacific bring to the chapters by way of connecting with the local markets, or in some instances our educational programs are tailored for chapter presentations so that the chapters can use intelligence that we have produced at the chapter level. And the most recent example of that is we've done a remarkably good job of creating a crisis management module whereby chapters can be taught and then can teach others how everyone should be into the preparedness for crisis, and how you can't afford not to have a plan, even if you've got a small company, let alone if you've got a big company, for crisis management and reputation management. So we're trying to translate elements of what we do centrally to local needs for local operators. We continue to connect our destinations to local markets, but we can't be all things to all people, and we recognize that there is some attrition in our membership at that modest, single store retail shop level, particularly in North America and Europe. And we regret it, but it's also the way the world works a little bit in terms of where the priorities lie and where our strengths lie. I think the PATA chapter network is still an answer to that, but it's a partial answer. And we've reduced fees for those local members so that it's not as onerous as it might have been, a couple of years ago. But still, I admit that we're having a difficult time persuading lots of local retail operators to join our chapters in the non-Asia Pacific markets. Our chapter network, therefore, has also been reduced. We have about 40 active chapters now. We used to have about 70 5-6 years ago. That's also a sign of the times. People are also extremely busy today. It's not as easy today to find time for volunteer activities in a local chapter as it may have been 10, 15 years ago. We're all being governed by, crackberries and mobile phones and inboxes and so on and so forth, and find it harder to free time for these semi-social, semi-professional activities that the PATA chapter engages in. We do have a network also of regional offices still. We have an office in San Francisco. We have an office in Beijing, a new one. We have a new office in Dubai. We have an office in Frankfurt, Germany, and in Sydney, Australia. So in addition to our headquarters in Bangkok, we do have good coverage. So if you are a member, big or small, in any of those regions, there is a place that you can call on, and there are people you can call on to assist you in your specific needs. This is a final comment. This is another phenomenon. Our information has to be far more tailored to individual needs of members. Again, one size does not fit all any longer. And all those people in the food chain that we've mentioned, all those stakeholders, have very different needs and very different expectations of a travel trade association like PATA. So we've also had to become much more versatile, quicker on our feet, and broader in our package of services to members. So we hope we're doing the right things in light of a quickly changing industry in a quickly changing world. And so far, knock on wood, we are very optimistic and confident about the future.
As I said, and as I'm sure you agree, the one thing we can count on is change. And at the next time we get together, there will be other changes. That would be good, because we know that's going to happen, and we just need to address them. Thank you so very much, Peter DeJong, CEO, President of PATA.